crashed it 11 times in 1 year.
In 10 years' time, you'll think that's the best thing I've done.
Hey, I'm Tim. This is Howden Originals, where I talk to classic car collectors and classic motor traders across the UK. Today, I'm joined by David Wells from Alders Classics. Welcome, David.
Morning, Tim.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
A little bit chilly this morning.
A little bit chilly, but it's bright and sunny. So.
I suppose you'll use this. I'm more of a desk man myself, so
Oh.
yeah, a little bit. Thanks for the coffee.
That's a pleasure.
So, where did we start? Where did you get into petrol? Where did you get into machines?
I was a very keen cyclist. Used to do a lot of time trials with my brother, and but it was a hard slog. You know, I cycled to and from Cornwall, and in about a week.
What, from here?
No, from Kent. I lived in
Okay.
Bromley in Kent. It's still a long way.
Yeah.
And I was just envious of anybody who had a vehicle with an engine, mechanical transport. So I thought, right, start saving up for a bike. I was 17. I bought an RD 250 two-stroke Yamaha on my 17th birthday, and it was a bit of a wreck, to be honest. And I crashed it 11 times in 1 year, which was going some.
I mean, at what point was that, you know, too many? Surely at 5 you would have stopped. I mean, how do we get to 11?
It was my daily transport.
Okay.
All my friends had bikes. We were quite competitive. We used to kind of go racing around at night, and it was good kind of adrenaline buzz. I kind of going to and from pubs and stuff like that. Got a bit silly in the end. Some friends got killed, and we all did our own kind of maintenance. Like used to do piston rings and things routinely at weekends and stuff like that. And of course, the bike got crashed so many times. Always things got broken, like clutch levers, indicators. So it was just a constant battle to keep the thing on the road. After that, I thought enough's enough.
Yeah.
And I bought a TR6. That was my first car.
Was it? Okay.
But that was very ambitious for a first car, and it was an absolute wreck. It was literally falling apart with rust.
And what age were you then?
Must have been 18 or 19.
Yeah, that's a pretty brave first car.
It was a bit of a stupid thing to do, quite honestly. And after about 3 months, it was so rusty, the rear axle disintegrated and the diff fell out when I was driving it.
Okay.
So that was actually a baptism of fire, really.
So this is British engineering. So looking around your cars today, there's a lot of British cars. Talk to me a bit about that. What's your passion for British cars?
I think someone has to be there to enthuse about British cars.
Okay.
You know, because people detract from them. They've got a kind of catalogue of issues, things like headlinings going wrong, head gaskets leak quite routinely. They rust very badly. They've got a lot of shortcomings, but they do have quite a lot of character and charm.
No, fair enough. I mean, is that what makes you go back for more then? I mean, that sounds like a glutton for punishment to me. I mean, you know, what makes you keep doing that? Is it just the passion of that mark?
I think you do identify with a particular mark. I think that's part of the story, but also certain cars remind you of certain eras. Like I like the 70s for music. You know, a lot of the great bands came from that period, and to me, there's quite a strong association with the vehicles of that time and the culture and the cars, and it's all kind of hand in glove. Okay. And I think about, I've got a Mustang, Ford Mustang, which is actually a 90s Mustang.
Yeah.
But really, when I think of Mustangs, I think of the late 60s, early 70s, and you had films like Bullet, Steve McQueen, and there was The Duel, and Vanishing Point, really great American road movies. So I tend to find that when I drive that car, I put the doors on, listen to the Doors, or maybe Steely Dan. Just kind of puts you in that kind of mindset, which is I find very relaxing.
No, fair enough. And what tracks do you go for in the British marks? I mean, what's your go-to driving bit of music?
People say, "What's your favourite group?" And that kind of varies with me from month to month. But I like the Who a lot.
Yeah.
I like the Deep Purple, I like the Stones, I like the Beatles, you know, all those iconic British groups.
No, fantastic. You've spoken about motorbikes and your ability or inability to ride them, and the fact you were a dispatch rider. How did you then set up in business? Talk to me a bit about Alders Classics and what you do.
Well, I've been sort of messing about with cars and bikes all my life, really, on and off, and that sort of culminated in doing my own repairs and things like that when I was younger. I mean, now luckily my job's more administrative, and it's kind of doing more paperwork and customer liaison and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But earlier on, it was kind of a bit more hands-on, and getting your hands dirty, doing head gaskets and things.
Yeah. When did you start? What how long ago was the business set up?
We actually moved to Norfolk about 20 years ago.
Okay.
Originally, I'm actually from Kent, but got frustrated down there with a number of speeding tickets and parking fines and all the paraphernalia, car being broken into.
Yeah.
But Norfolk's a better area. It's much more, it's kind of like going back in time 20 years, and there's very little crime. People don't lock their doors, leave their house open all week and don't worry about it.
No, fair enough.
Great roads up here. I actually live in Dereham, which is about 25 miles from here.
Okay.
But there's a little B road, B1135. It's just a meandering little road that goes to Wymondham, then over to Dereham, and it's just great driving. Love it.
Fantastic. And did you go with the bikes on that sometimes, or is it
I
mainly
actually
cars?
cycle. I got back into cycling again. So if I feel up to it, I do a 50-mile ride from home to work, back home.
That's pretty impressive. So what kind of client base have you got, and what kind of services can Alders Classics offer to people?
The majority of our customers are just sort of one family, one car owners. Sometimes it's a kind of a husband and wife enthusiasm, not in all cases. Other customers have got big collections, maybe 3, 5, even 10 cars. And really the business has kind of evolved around their needs. And we probably just start off by doing bits of paintwork, servicing, things like that. But then that kind of evolved into more of a complete restoration, where it's a lot more complex when you're actually taking a car, completely dismantling it, putting all the parts into boxes, labelling all the boxes up, putting them into a container, photographing everything. Some jobs have actually taken over 1,000 photos for one particular project. And people ask you for new things all the time. They might say, can you do a custom exhaust, or can you do some uprated brakes, or how about a whole new interior? So really, things have just improved as they've gone along. Like we put headlinings in, change windscreens. I think we're a lot more versatile now. Yeah.
So, but classic car ownership, obviously that's what drives your business. That's what keeps you paying the bills. So talk to me a bit about what you think motivates people to buy a classic car.
I think in a lot of cases it's nostalgia, and people go back to cars that they used to have in a particularly enjoyable part of their life. Maybe it could be related to a particular decade. It may be that they aspired to a car that they couldn't afford back then, but sort of 20, 30 years later, they can actually get the car of their dreams. So it might be fulfilling that ambition.
And how do you manage that ownership expectation? I mean, if I desired a car and I came to you, David, and said, right, this is the car, at what point do you say, Tim, that you bought a bag of spanners here?
You can certainly overspend. You can buy a very rough example of a car and think you bought it cheap. But that really is a mistake in most cases. Really better off to buy the most expensive car that you can afford and then probably spend less on repairing it subsequently.
Enough. Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. And what about the kind of investment piece? Some people are drawn to buy a car because that's what they remember as a kid. But there's going to be an element of people that want a quick return on their investment. How do you manage that? How do you manage people's expectation on investment?
I think you have to be very shrewd to actually succeed in doing that. I mean, a few people certainly do, but you need to pick something that's very, very rare and something that's currently out of fashion, but something you project that in a few years' time people are going to actually want to buy that car for whatever reason. So really, the classic car cycle, it kind of rolls forward, and probably the most collectible cars are not kind of 50s and 60s cars now, but more the kind of 80s, 90s cars, because people are going to aspire to own that kind of a car.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's just naturally part of succession, isn't it? No, you've got people in their 40s, 50s, 60s that are now looking at their poster cars, which would be, whatever they had from the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
So putting you on the spot a little bit, I mean, where do you see good investments going now? What kind of marks, what kind of future do you see? I mean, I'm not expecting you to have a crystal ball here.
No.
What's your gut feeling on where things are going?
I think because people are very focused on a clean environment, probably some smaller engined cars possibly, because a lot of big V12s, Jags, Astons, whatever, Rollses, they get a very bad press because people think they're this big gas guzzlers. But it's slightly ironic because a lot of those cars that we see don't do more than, say, 500 miles in a year or 1,000 miles between services. So it's actually almost negligible. They don't really cause much pollution. And you actually, if you think about it, you actually very rarely see them out on the road.
No, that's true. Or they're broken down.
Yeah.
That's the other.
By the side of the road.
Is there anything you can do, if you own a classic car and you're worried about that, is there anything you can do to make it more friendly to the environment? What your thoughts on synthetic fuels, for example?
I don't know. I think it's depends on the individual. If it's going to be a daily driver, you've got to think very long and hard, because a lot of these cars, I mean, I like British sports cars, but they all leak like a sieve.
Yeah.
So every morning in the winter, you get in and the whole windscreen's steamed up, the side glasses are steamed.
Yeah.
Then you've got to hope whether the heaters still work from the last time you drove it. And it can become very frustrating. So ideally, it's something you want to garage and just bring out at the weekends and for holidays.
No, fair enough. I couldn't get you to commit on a definite investment opportunity, but I can't help but notice you've got quite a lot of Lotus Elans. Do you want to talk to me a bit about the Lotus Elan?
I've got 3 Lotus Elans, Tim, as you pointed out. I think that's going to be my punt for the future. It's only just a guess, like you might pick a stock that you think will do well or whatever. But the first thing is they won't rust, because that's the biggest killer with all classic cars. And the chassis potentially could rust, but it's actually galvanised steel, so it's actually very well protected.
So what are the good things about the Elan, and what are the pitfalls?
They were generally hated by the public, motoring public, because they were a front-wheel drive. But the handling was exceptional. It's probably the best front-wheel drive handling car, maybe of all time, certainly of that era.
Okay.
Because they had a very sophisticated front axle and suspension, and it wasn't prone to torque steer and wheel spin like most kind of hot hatch type front-wheel drives. So it's quite a different experience to drive it. And I think it's actually quite aesthetic. But on the downside, the roof tends to leak very badly, like all British sports cars. And we're actually pioneering a method of making a fiberglass roof to substitute the original soft top. So we want to actually try and produce a car that is completely watertight.
So you're taking the soft top off and replacing it, or is the shell going on top of it?
It'll still be there.
Okay.
It'll live under the top plastic tonneau cover at the back. But I think in more cases than not, it'll actually be a full-time permanent roof.
Might make it more usable. I mean, certainly it's raining today. Our film crew are outside getting wet, which is kind of funny. So talk to me a bit about cars that you don't like then. I mean, without naming and shaming and us getting involved in legal disputes, what's an absolute rotter for you to work on particularly, and one that you'd avoid?
I think in some ways the worst cars are the ones that are really terminally rusted. And the problem there is it's kind of, you get the obvious things that you can see on the outside, like around the wheel arches and the bottoms of the doors, the sills. But when you kind of investigate further, you find big sections of, certainly the floors rot in a lot of old Jags, for instance. which is complex to sort out because you can't necessarily buy the panels anymore. So you have to cut out the rust, and then you have to fabricate new panels to replace the rusted areas, which is all doable, but it's quite time consuming. There's lots of panel beating, cutting, welding, fabricating, and it gets very, very expensive. And you can find in some cases that the rust actually goes right into the bulkhead and things like balances, and it's really affecting the integrity of the actual body. So those jobs become very time consuming, very, very expensive from the customer's point of view. And sometimes they're disappointed because they might have bought a car that they thought they had aspirations that it could be brought back to its original condition, but probably unrealistic in some cases, unless it's something very, very rare. You know, if you get lucky enough to find a Jaguar C-Type, then you know the sky's the limit. But if it's just an E-Type or an XJS or something like that, you can very quickly overspend, and then the customer gets frustrated that all of a sudden he's spending more than the car's actually going to be worth.
But that's just about that passion again, isn't it? I think that's ultimately what drives classic car ownership.
Exactly, and some people just don't care. They don't really care what the cost is. It's oblivious. And as long as that car comes back to how they want it, they're not too perturbed.
Well, it keeps you in business as well.
It does.
David, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you
Likewise.
today. And we're dry and warm, unlike the film crew here. So Howden Originals have brought this to you today. It's been great. Thanks a lot.
It's been a pleasure. Cheers, Tim.
Cheers.